The warship hung in space like a metal moon. Inside, war tactician Zrelkoth stood before a display showing a small blue planet. His gray skin rippled with satisfaction. This was world number 848. Another easy victory for the Valthek Dominion. For 3,000 years, the Valthek had conquered their way across the galaxy. They had crushed warrior races. They had defeated species with weapons that could crack planets. They had even subjugated a civilization that could manipulate time itself. None of it mattered. The Valthek always won. They had the numbers, the experience, and the cold logic of a species that never stopped expanding. Earth would fall in 72 hours. Maybe less. Zrelkoth's secondary eyes focused on the tactical display. The planet's defenses were laughable. Nuclear weapons, crude dirty bombs that poisoned the very ground they fought over. Chemical rockets that barely escaped the planet's gravity well. Radio transmissions that leaked into space like a child shouting in the dark. Pathetic, he muttered. His aide, a younger Valthek named Kormeth, nodded in agreement. The initial scans are complete, war tactician. Population approximately 8 billion. Divided into nearly 200 tribal governments. Multiple languages. No unified command structure. They still fight among themselves. Zrelkoth's mouth split into what passed for a Valthek smile. Divided prey was easy prey. His species had learned this lesson on 847 previous worlds. Begin standard protocol, he commanded. Intercept their communications. Map their military installations. Identify their population centers. We move to subjugation phase in 48 hours. Kormeth hesitated. War tactician, there is one unusual element. The volume of their transmissions is excessive. They broadcast constantly. Entertainment, news, personal messages. The data stream is enormous. Irrelevant, Zrelkoth said. Assign a junior analyst to sort through it. Focus on military communications only. I want to know where their weapons are, not what their civilians chatter about. In a smaller chamber 3 levels below the command deck, junior analyst Teknor received his assignment with a sinking feeling. Communication analysis was usually simple. Military channels here, government frequencies there, civilian chatter everywhere else. But the humans were different. They broadcasted everything. Everything. Teknor's workstation hummed as it processed terabytes of human data. Television shows, music, something called the Internet, news broadcasts, movies, books converted to audio, video recordings of humans doing trivial tasks. It was chaos. It was noise. It was utterly unlike anything Teknor had seen from 847 other conquered species. He started with the obvious military frequencies. Human military communications were surprisingly sophisticated, though their encryption was easy to break. Nothing concerning. Standard defensive postures. No evidence they even knew the Valthek fleet was watching them. But then Teknor found something odd in the civilian broadcasts. Humans had an entire category of entertainment called science fiction. Stories about space, about aliens, about wars among the stars. Teknor pulled up a random sample, a film about humans fighting insect-like aliens. He watched, confused, as the humans in the story fought desperately against overwhelming odds. They lost cities. Millions died, and yet they kept fighting. The movie ended with the humans winning through cleverness and sacrifice. Strange. Most species created stories about harmony and peace. The Valthek themselves preferred historical records and tactical studies. But humans seemed obsessed with conflict. Teknor pulled up another sample. This one showed humans fighting machines they had created. Again, terrible losses. Again, desperate struggle. Again, human victory. Another film. Humans versus zombies. Walking corpses of their own dead. Another. Humans versus aliens who wanted to harvest their bodies. Another. Humans versus their own gods. Another. Humans versus reality itself falling apart. Every story followed the same pattern. Humans faced impossible odds. Humans suffered terrible losses. Humans won anyway, or if they lost, they died fighting. Teknor felt the first whisper of unease. He pushed it aside and continued his work. He cataloged human military assets, noted their defensive positions, and prepared a standard analysis report. The humans were no threat. Their technology was primitive. Their society was fragmented. They would surrender after the first demonstration of Valthek power. They always did, but the stories bothered him. Why did humans spend so much time and effort creating fantasies about warfare? Why did they imagine fighting aliens when they had never encountered any? Why were they so obsessed with survival against impossible odds? He decided to add a footnote to his report. Nothing major. Just a note that human civilian culture showed unusual fixation on conflict scenarios. Probably irrelevant, but worth mentioning for the xenopsychology team. Technor submitted his report and waited. Above him, the Valthek fleet moved into position. Conquest ships formed a blockade pattern around Earth. Troop carriers prepared their landing forces. Communication jamming arrays powered up, ready to cut Earth off from any hope of outside help. In the command center, Zrelkoth reviewed Technor's report. He skimmed past the footnote without much interest. Every species had its quirks. The important facts were clear. Earth had approximately 2 million active military personnel, scattered nuclear arsenals, and conventional weapons that posed no threat to Valthek armor. The invasion would begin at dawn, Earth time. The Valthek would demonstrate their power by disabling all human satellites simultaneously. Then they would broadcast their surrender demand in every human language. After that, they would wait for the inevitable capitulation. It had worked 847 times before. It would work again. Zrelkoth allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Soon Earth's resources would flow to the Dominion. Its population would be integrated into the workforce. Its history would become a footnote in Valthek records. Another world. Another victory. Another step toward total galactic domination. He had no way of knowing that 3 levels below, Junior Analyst Technor was still watching human broadcasts, and the unease in his mind was growing into something that felt uncomfortably like fear. Technor could not sleep. In the Valthek rest cycle, his mind kept returning to the human broadcasts. Something was wrong. He felt it in his bones, though he could not explain it to himself, let alone to his superiors. He returned to his workstation and began a deeper analysis. This time, he did not just sample random human entertainment. He studied it systematically. He looked for patterns. What he found disturbed him more with each passing hour. Humans had been telling stories about warfare for their entire recorded history. Clay tablets from 5,000 years ago described battles. Ancient texts detailed military strategies. Medieval manuscripts illustrated siege weapons. Modern humans created entire industries around simulating combat. Technor discovered something called video games, interactive simulations where humans practiced fighting. They did this for fun, for entertainment. In their leisure time, humans chose to pretend to kill each other, kill aliens, kill monsters, kill anything that moved. He found human history records next. Every civilization, every era, every continent. War, and more war. Humans fought over land. They fought over resources. They fought over ideas. They fought over gods. They fought over insults. They fought because their leaders were bored. The analyst pulled up a human concept called total war. He read the definition with growing horror. It meant warfare where entire societies mobilized, where every factory produced weapons, where every citizen contributed to the war effort, where the distinction between soldier and civilian disappeared because everyone was part of the fight. Humans had done this multiple times. Recently, Technor found records of something called World War II. In less than 6 years, humans had killed over 70 million of their own kind. They had built weapons factories that operated every hour of every day. They had conscripted entire generations. They had firebombed their own cities to deny them to enemies. They had invented weapons that could vaporize entire populations in seconds. And then, impossibly, they had stopped. They had pulled back from total annihilation. They had rebuilt. And they had kept all the weapons just in case. This led Technor to the most disturbing discovery of all. Humans had a concept called spite. It meant doing something harmful to yourself just to hurt your enemy more. It meant fighting not because you could win, but because losing without fighting was unthinkable. He found a human phrase. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. It appeared in their entertainment, their history, and their military doctrine. Technor worked through the night cycle, compiling his findings. By morning, he had a report that terrified him. He requested an immediate meeting with war tactician Zrelkoth. The war tactician did not look pleased to be disturbed. His command chamber was busy with final invasion preparations. Fleet commanders reported readiness. Troop carriers confirmed deployment schedules. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Junior Analyst Zrelkoth said coldly, "You requested this meeting. It had better be important. We commence operations in 12 hours. Technor's hands shook as he activated his presentation. War tactician, I believe we should reconsider the invasion of Earth. The humans are not what they appear to be. Murmurs rippled through the assembled officers. Reconsider? The Valthek Dominion did not reconsider. They conquered. It was what they did. Srelkoth's eyes narrowed. Explain, quickly. The humans have been at war continuously for their entire history, Technor began. They have never achieved global peace, not once. Somewhere on their planet, at every moment, humans are fighting other humans. Many species have violent pasts, Srelkoth interrupted. Civilization suppresses these primitive instincts. We see no evidence of major conflict on Earth currently. Because they are not currently facing an external threat, Technor said. But war tactician, they practice warfare constantly. For entertainment. They run combat simulations in virtual environments. They study historical battles. They write detailed analyses of military strategies. They create fiction about fighting aliens, and these fictions are wildly popular. Fiction is irrelevant, Srelkoth said dismissively. Is it? Technor pulled up a display showing human languages. They have 847 words for different types of conflict in their major languages. War, battle, fight, skirmish, clash, combat, struggle, each with distinct meanings. They have a more sophisticated vocabulary for violence than we do. This caused a stir among the officers. The Valthek prided themselves on their military precision. The idea that a primitive species had better language for warfare was insulting. They have nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Technor continued, his confidence growing. They invented nuclear weapons and immediately used them on each other. Then they built enough to destroy their planet hundreds of times over. They pointed these weapons at each other for decades, ready to end their civilization at any moment. They called it mutually assured destruction, and they considered it a reasonable strategy. Insane, someone muttered. Perhaps, Technor agreed, but effective. War tactician. They did not build these weapons as a last resort. They built them as a deterrent. They constructed doomsday devices to prevent war by promising that any war would end in mutual extinction, and it worked. They have not used these weapons in 80 years, but they still maintain them. They still improve them. They still test new designs. Srelkoth was beginning to look uncomfortable. What is your point, analyst? My point is that humans do not think like any species we have encountered. When faced with impossible odds, they do not surrender. They double down. They invent new weapons. They find new strategies. They fight harder. Technor pulled up human entertainment again. Look at their fiction, war tactician. Every story where humans face aliens follows the same pattern. The aliens are more advanced. The aliens have better weapons. The aliens should win easily, and the humans find a way to win anyway. They show these stories to their children. They celebrate these narratives. It is cultural conditioning for resistance. You are reading too much into entertainment, Srelkoth said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then explain this, Technor said. He displayed human military spending figures. Earth's military expenditure exceeds the entire gross domestic product of most Valthek subject worlds. They maintain standing armies during peacetime. They develop weapons they never intend to use. They plan for threats that do not exist yet. This is not a species that will surrender easily, war tactician. This is a species that has been preparing for us without even knowing we exist. The command chamber fell silent. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Srelkoth stared at the data, his confidence wavering for the first time in his long career. Finally, he spoke. Your concerns are noted, analyst. However, we have committed to this invasion. The fleet is in position. We will proceed, but with additional caution. Double the reconnaissance before landing. Increase bombardment of military targets. We will break their spirit before we set foot on their planet. Technor wanted to argue more, but he knew it was useless. The Valthek did not retreat. They did not reconsider. They conquered. It was the only way they knew. He returned to his station and continued monitoring human transmissions. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a thought whispered, what if the humans were monitoring them right back? Technor's worst fears were confirmed when the xenobiology team delivered their report. He sat in the briefing room with 24 other analysts, listening to senior biologist Rental explain human physiology. What he heard made his blood run cold. Humans are persistence hunters, Rental began, displaying a rotating model of human anatomy. Their evolution is unique among species we have catalogued. They did not develop venom, claws, or natural armor. Instead, they evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. A junior officer laughed. They ran at their food until it died. How primitive, Rental did not smile. You misunderstand. Human endurance is extraordinary. They can run for hours without stopping. Their cooling system, this sweating mechanism, allows them to regulate temperature during extended exertion. Most predators on their planet, including larger and stronger ones, cannot match human stamina. Humans simply outlast them. So they are durable, another officer said. This does not make them dangerous. There is more, Vrental continued. Humans have a combat enhancement mechanism called the adrenaline response. When threatened, their bodies flood with hormones that temporarily increase strength, speed, reaction time, and pain tolerance. A human under adrenaline can perform feats impossible under normal conditions. Technor raised his hand. Does this response trigger when they face danger? Yes, and here is the critical detail. Humans can learn to control it. Their soldiers train to function under adrenaline. Their athletes deliberately trigger it for competition. They have turned a survival mechanism into a tactical advantage. The room grew quieter. Officers began to understand why Technor had raised his concerns. Vrental displayed footage of human soldiers in training. Observe. They practice combat while sleep-deprived. They simulate injuries and continue fighting. They train in extreme temperatures, hostile terrain, and psychologically stressful conditions. This is not warrior caste training. This is basic instruction that all human soldiers receive. How do their numbers compare to ours? Zrelkoth asked from the back of the room. Earth's current military population is approximately 20 million active personnel, with another 100 million trained reserves. However, war tactician, there is a complication. Human society has something called universal conscription in many regions. In theory, most of their adult population has basic combat training. In practice, if threatened with extinction, Earth could mobilize billions. The number hung in the air like poison. Billions. The entire Valthek military, even at full mobilization across all occupied territories, numbered only 340 million. They would not fight as effectively as trained soldiers, someone argued. Would they not? Technor interjected. He activated his own display showing human history. During World War II, humans fielded over 100 million combatants. Entire societies transformed into war machines. Factory workers became weapon manufacturers. Scientists became bomb designers. Farmers became soldiers. The distinction between civilian and military disappeared, and they maintained this for 6 years. He pulled up another image. This is called the Siege of Leningrad. One human city surrounded by enemies cut off from supplies. The attackers expected quick surrender. Instead, the humans held for 872 days. Over 1 million civilians died from starvation, disease, and bombardment. And they did not surrender. They chose to starve rather than submit. Insanity, someone whispered. No, Technor said quietly. Determination. War tactician. I have found 73 similar examples in human history. Cities that fought to the last defender. Armies that refused retreat orders. Populations that chose death over occupation. This is not aberrant behavior for humans. This is their standard response to existential threats. Vrental nodded. The biological basis is clear. Humans evolved as both predators and prey. They were hunted by larger animals, so they learned to fight in groups. They hunted dangerous prey, so they learned to accept casualties as normal. Their psychology is built around pack loyalty and sustained resistance. They are biologically and culturally conditioned to fight overwhelming odds. Zrelkoth stood and approached the display. He studied the human figures, the historical images, the biological data. His expression was troubled. What about their weapons? He asked. We know they have nuclear devices. What else? Technor pulled up a comprehensive list. Nuclear weapons is mentioned. Chemical weapons, which they have banned but still maintain. Biological weapons, similarly banned but not destroyed. Conventional explosives of immense power. Directed energy weapons in early development. Kinetic bombardment systems in testing. Railguns, coil guns, and war tactician, they have weapons they invented and then decided never to use. Why develop weapons and not use them? Because they were too effective. Humans created bombs that would poison their planet for generations. They developed diseases that could wipe out entire populations. They designed weapons that would make their world uninhabitable. And then they looked at what they had made and said, this is too much, and they sealed them away. But they kept the knowledge. They kept the production capability. They could rebuild these weapons in months if threatened. The briefing room fell into heavy silence. Officers who had laughed at the primitive humans now looked worried. The conquest of World 848 was not proceeding as planned. There is one more thing, Technor said. He felt sick bringing it up, but it had to be said. Humans have a military concept called acceptable losses. It means they calculate how many casualties they are willing to accept to achieve an objective. War tactician. Human acceptable loss rates are 10 to 100 times higher than any other species we have encountered. What does that mean in practical terms? Zrelkoth asked. It means that if we kill 1 million humans, they will not surrender. If we kill 10 million, they will not surrender. They will mourn their dead, and they will fight harder. Their history shows this repeatedly. Casualties that would break any other species only make humans more determined. Frental added, there is a human phrase, you have not yet begun to fight. They use it when an enemy thinks victory is near, only to discover the humans have hidden reserves of strength. It appears in their military culture, their sports, their everyday language. It represents a core human belief that the fight is never truly over until they decide it is over. Zrelkoth returned to his command chair. He looked older, suddenly tired. The invasion begins in 6 hours. All of this information should have been compiled weeks ago. Why was it not? Because we did not look for it, Teknor admitted. We assumed humans were like every other species. We were wrong. Humans are not prey that will surrender. They are not predators that will negotiate. They are something else entirely. They are survivors who have been waiting for a worthy opponent. That is absurd, Zrelkoth said, but his voice was weak. We are not here to give them a challenge. We are here to conquer. War tactician, Teknor said carefully. I strongly recommend we delay the invasion. We need more reconnaissance. We need to understand human military doctrine better. We need to know what they are capable of before we commit ground forces. Zrelkoth was silent for a long moment. Finally he nodded. Agreed. We will observe for another 48 hours, but we will not retreat. The Valthek Dominion does not flee from primitive species. We will simply be more careful. Teknor wanted to argue that careful might not be enough, but he had already pushed as far as he dared. He could only hope that 48 hours would be enough time to find a way to avoid the disaster he felt approaching. The decision to send the ultimatum was made over Teknor's desperate objections. War tactician Zrelkoth had consulted with the Dominion High Command, and they had been clear. Observation was complete. The invasion would proceed. But first, as with all conquests, Earth would be given the chance to surrender. The message was crafted carefully. It used mathematical language, universal concepts that any intelligent species should understand, prime numbers to establish communication, binary code to convey meaning. The ultimatum itself was simple and direct. We are the Valthek Dominion. We have conquered 847 worlds. You are surrounded. You are outmatched. You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your military capabilities followed by forced subjugation of your population. Choose wisely. The message was transmitted on every frequency humans used. Radio, television, internet, satellite communications. It was repeated in every human language. The Valthek expected panic. They expected desperate attempts at negotiation. They expected ultimately submission. What they got was something else entirely. The response came 12 hours later. Fast. Too fast. Teknor's heart sank when the signal appeared on his monitor. The humans had not panicked. They had not scrambled to respond. They had taken their time, crafted a reply, and sent it back with disturbing confidence. Worse, the message was in perfect Valthek language, not translated through mathematical concepts. Actual Valthek words, grammar, even colloquialisms. The humans had decrypted every communication the fleet had sent. They had learned the language. They had been listening all along. Teknor opened the file with shaking hands. What he saw made his blood freeze. The message began simply, "We received your surrender demand. Here is our response." What followed was a complete analysis of the Valthek fleet. Ship classifications, weapons capabilities, shield frequencies, crew complements, tactical doctrine, supply lines, everything. The humans had identified every weakness, cataloged every system, mapped every strategic vulnerability. Then came the second part, a compressed database containing 10,000 years of human warfare. Every major conflict, every tactical innovation, every weapon system, battle strategies from ancient cavalry charges to modern drone warfare. It was not a plea for mercy. It was a warning disguised as an education. But the third part was what truly shocked the Valthek command. The humans had included their social media responses to the alien contact. Billions of messages, compiled and translated. And the overwhelming emotion was not fear. It was excitement. Finally! appeared in thousands of variations. Humans celebrating first contact. Humans joking about alien invasions. Humans posting images of weapons with captions like, "Been waiting for this." Humans sharing fictional stories about defeating aliens and adding, "Told you this would happen eventually." The message included trending phrases from human social networks. "Hold my beer" appeared 17 million times. The translators explained it meant a human was about to attempt something dangerous while intoxicated with confidence. "Let's go" appeared 34 million times. An expression of eager anticipation for conflict. "About time" appeared 22 million times, indicating humans had been expecting this. "Earth says hi" appeared 9 million times, often attached to images of weapons. Technor scrolled through the responses, his horror growing. Humans were making jokes. They were creating artwork showing humans defeating Valtech soldiers. They were calculating battle strategies. They were volunteering to fight. Some were disappointed the aliens had not landed yet. The final section of the message was addressed directly to the Valtech Fleet Command. The signature was bizarre. "From the internet with love. We have been expecting someone like you for over 100 years. We have written thousands of stories about this exact scenario. We have created millions of hours of simulated combat against alien invaders. We have trained ourselves through fiction, games, and cultural preparation. We have imagined every possible variation of this encounter. You analyzed our military capabilities and found them primitive. Correct. You observed our divided governments and assumed we could not unify. Incorrect. You saw our violent history and thought it made us weak. Wrong. Our violent history made us experts. We have been practicing warfare for 10,000 years. We have fought in every terrain, every climate, every condition. We have deployed every possible tactic. We have learned from every defeat. We have improved after every victory. We have turned warfare into a science, and we have studied that science more thoroughly than any subject except perhaps warfare itself. You have 48 hours to leave our space. This is not a negotiation, this is a courtesy. We are offering you what you offered us, a chance to avoid conflict. We do not want war, but we are very, very good at it. And unlike you, we have been fighting constantly for our entire history. You have been conquering. There is a difference. Conquering is easy when your opponents surrender, but we will not surrender. We do not know how. It is not in our cultural vocabulary. We have a saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." It means we would rather die free than live as slaves. This is not rhetoric. This is not bravado. This is cultural programming going back thousands of years. We have already wargamed this specific scenario. Your tactical doctrine is predictable. Your fleet composition has weaknesses. Your supply lines are overextended. We have identified 47 different strategies to defeat your invasion force. We have backup plans for our backup plans. This is what we do. We prepare for threats that do not exist yet, and now, you exist. We are ready. The question is, are you? The message ended with a simple addition. P.S. Our nuclear arsenals are now tracking your fleet. Our biological weapons labs are active. Our chemical weapons stockpiles are mobilized. Our orbital defense platforms are charging. Our military personnel are deployed. Our civilian population is arming itself. Our internet has achieved consensus. If you attack us, we will make you regret it. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Choose wisely. Zrelkoth read the message 3 times. His hands trembled. Around him, the command center had gone silent. Every officer stared at their displays, reading the same information, coming to the same terrible conclusion. The humans knew they were there. The humans had analyzed their entire fleet. The humans had prepared countermeasures. And the humans were not afraid. "Sir," Cormeth said quietly, "we are detecting weapons activations across the planet. Missile silos opening. Defense satellites powering up. Military bases going to full alert. Sir, they are preparing for war." "They are excited for it," Technor added, his voice hollow. "Look at their social media. They are celebrating. War tactician in 847 previous conquests, we have never encountered a species that welcomed invasion. But humans are not afraid. They are eager. This is what they have been training for their entire civilization. Zrelkoth stared at the tactical display. Red indicators were appearing across Earth's surface like a rash. Every indicator represented a weapon system activating, a military unit mobilizing, a defense platform coming online. The planet was transforming from a peaceful blue sphere into a bristling fortress. They sent us their entire military history, one analyst whispered. Why would they do that? Because they want us to understand what we are facing, Technor said. They are not trying to hide their capabilities. They are showing them off. This is psychological warfare. They want us to know exactly how dangerous they are. They want us to be afraid. Is it working? Someone asked. Zrelkoth closed his eyes. For the first time in his long military career, he did not know what to do. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat. But the Dominion did not retreat. It had never retreated. 847 worlds conquered. 0 defeats. But looking at the data, reading the human message, seeing the eager responses from billions of humans ready to fight, Zrelkoth felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. The Emergency War Council lasted 6 hours. Every senior officer in the fleet participated. The debate was fierce, the arguments passionate, but the conclusion was inevitable. The Valthek Dominion would retreat. The xenobiology team delivered the final piece of evidence that sealed the decision. Senior biologist Vrental presented findings that made even the most aggressive officers reconsider. The human adrenaline response makes them demonstrably stronger and faster under threat, Vrental explained. But there is more. Humans have another mechanism called hysterical strength. Under extreme stress, human psychological limiters disengage. A human parent can lift a vehicle to save their child. A human soldier can continue fighting with injuries that should incapacitate them. These are not legends. These are documented medical phenomena. Furthermore, he continued, humans have something called spite structures in their military doctrine. These are weapons designed purely to ensure mutual destruction. If humans believe they will lose, they have systems in place to guarantee their enemy loses too. They will destroy their own cities to deny them to invaders. They will poison their own resources rather than let others use them. They will fight to mutual extinction if that is the only option left. The strategic analysis team added their own dire assessment. The human message was not bluffing. We have detected preparation for what they call total war. Every major industrial center is converting to military production. Their internet has coordinated a global response in under 12 hours. War tactician, they are mobilizing their entire civilization. If we invade, we will not be fighting 8 billion individuals. We will be fighting one unified organism with 8 billion cells, each willing to die for the whole. They have also demonstrated something unprecedented, Techner added. They broke our encryption. They learned our language. They analyzed our fleet composition. All in less than 2 weeks. War tactician. No species has ever accomplished this. The humans are not just warriors. They are extremely intelligent. They adapt faster than any species in our records. Zrelkoth listened to it all. The biological assessments, the tactical evaluations, the cultural analyses. Every piece of data pointed to the same conclusion. Humans were not prey. They were not even predators in the normal sense. They were something the Valthek had never encountered before. They were survivors who had turned survival into an art form. What are our chances? Zrelkoth asked finally. The tactical officer hesitated. If we commit to orbital bombardment only, we can destroy their cities. But their mobile arsenals will survive. Their submarine-launched nuclear weapons, their mobile missile platforms, their distributed command structure. We can hurt them badly, but we cannot eliminate their ability to retaliate. And war tactician, they have enough nuclear weapons to make this fleet radioactive debris. If we commit ground forces, an even longer pause, our simulations show heavy casualties. Humans will fight for every city, every town, every building. They have home terrain advantage. They have the numbers. And they have proven historical willingness to accept catastrophic losses without surrendering. Conservative estimates suggest we would need to eliminate 90% of their population to achieve subjugation. And even then, the remaining 10% would likely continue resistance. So we cannot win, Zrelkoth said flatly. We could achieve a Pyrrhic victory, the tactical officer admitted. We could devastate Earth, but the cost would cripple our fleet. We would lose 60 to 80% of our invasion force. The survivors would be too damaged to maintain control of the planet. And the humans would never accept occupation. We would be fighting insurgencies for decades, possibly centuries. Zrelkoth stood and walked to the viewing port. Earth hung below, blue and white and beautiful. 8 billion humans living on that sphere. 8 billion potential combatants. 8 billion individuals who had just sent a message saying they were ready to fight. And they were excited about it. That was the part that disturbed him most. The humans were not terrified. They were not desperately seeking peace. They were eager for this confrontation. Thousands of years of fictional preparation had made them confident. Their violent history had made them competent. Their cultural values made them unbreakable. Contact High Command, Zrelkoth ordered. Inform them we are withdrawing from Earth space. Mark the planet as species classification Apex Predator World. Do not engage. The relief in the command center was palpable. Officers who had maintained brave faces now sagged with released tension. They had come so close to the first defeat in Dominion history. Pulling back was humiliating, but it was better than the alternative. Prepare withdrawal course, Zrelkoth continued. All ships to battle stations during retreat. If the humans fire on us during withdrawal, we respond with full force, but we do not initiate further contact. War tactician, Technor said quietly. There is one more thing. The humans have already launched pursuit probes. Small, fast craft that are shadowing our fleet. They are observing us the same way we observed them. Let them watch, Zrelkoth said tiredly. Let them see us leave. Perhaps it will satisfy their curiosity. As the fleet began its slow turn away from Earth, one final transmission arrived from the planet. Zrelkoth almost did not read it. He had seen enough human messages, but curiosity made him open the file. It was not from a government. It was not from a military command. It was a compilation of messages from random humans. Civilians who had been following the first contact situation on their internet. The messages ranged from disappointed, to mocking, to threatening. That's it? Appeared multiple times. Humans who had expected more. We made a welcome banner, with attached images of signs reading, "Hello aliens" and "Welcome to Earth." Please don't eat us unless you're into that. Run appeared simply thousands of times. A one-word threat that needed no elaboration. Come back when you're ready. For a real fight, from someone who seemed to think this was a sporting event. Disappointed, but not surprised, from a human who apparently expected aliens to be cowards. And then, inexplicably, one message that was just audio. Aggressive human music with sounds of laughter. The cultural analysis team explained it was a victory celebration. The humans were celebrating before the fight even happened. They were so confident in their ability to resist that they considered the retreat a victory. Zrelkoth closed the transmission. He felt old, tired. The Valtech Dominion had just encountered the first species it could not conquer, and that species was barely out of its own star system. What would humans be like in 1,000 years? In 10,000 years? When they developed faster-than-light travel and began spreading to other worlds? The galaxy was about to become a very different place. 6 months later, Earth was officially designated as a prohibited contact zone. The Dominion updated its conquest protocols with a new rule. Any species that broadcasts fictional warfare scenarios is to be avoided. Any species with nuclear weapons and no global government is to be avoided. Any species that responds to invasion threats with excitement rather than fear is to be avoided. In practice, the rules boiled down to one simple guideline: avoid humans. Technor was promoted for his prescient analysis. Zrelkoth was reassigned to administrative duties for his failure to conquer World 848. The gap in the Dominion's perfect record was officially explained as a tactical withdrawal for strategic reasons. No one believed the official story. Everyone knew the truth. The Valtech had encountered a species they could not defeat, and they had run away. The legend of Earth spread through Dominion space like wildfire. Other species began asking questions. If the mighty Valtech feared humans, what did that mean? Should everyone fear them? Should they seek alliance? Should they prepare defenses? On Earth, humanity celebrated its first contact, brief as it was. The aliens had come. They had seen Earth's defenses, and they had left. Humans interpreted this as validation. They were right to be cautious, right to maintain their militaries, right to prepare for threats that did not exist yet, because one day one of those threats would be real, and humans would be ready. In the end, the Valtech learned what every predator eventually discovers. There is always something higher on the food chain. The Dominion had been apex predators for 3,000 years. But humans were something else. They were not predators or prey. They were the thing that hunted predators for sport. And the scariest part, the detail that haunted Zrelkoth in his administrative exile, was simple. Humans had defended themselves without firing a single shot. They had won through reputation alone, through cultural preparation, through strategic psychology. If that was what humans could do without fighting, what would they be capable of if they actually went to war? Zrelkoth hoped he would never find out. But he suspected that someone, somewhere in the galaxy, would eventually test humanity's limits. Some species would ignore the warnings, would think the Valthek were cowards, would assume humans were bluffing, and that species would discover what the Valthek had already learned. Humans did not bluff. They prepared. They practiced. They planned. And when the fight finally came, they would be ready. The last message from Earth, added to the Dominion's database as a permanent warning, said it best. We know you're out there. We're waiting, and we've been practicing.